I love getting this fish into my seafood market. Black belly rosefish are a deep water fish we catch right out here in South Florida. These fish live on the ocean floor and they're opportunistic predators. They are stationary and they hang out waiting for the right food to swim by as they lunge. This fish has clean white meat and a very unique texture. When we first started seeing black belly rosefish in our seafood market, it was from accidental catch or bycatch from golden tile fishermen or barrel fishermen deep dropping, and they would catch these rosefish instead, which no one was happy about at all because they had no demand, very little market value because of the lack of demand. But fish markets like ours would take them anyway because we don't like seeing anything go to waste. After coming up 800 feet of water, the fish are not going back down safely. And from receiving these fish, we found that they're actually really good. So we started educating our customers on how it's a great, at the time, less expensive alternative. Fast forward to today, and their market value is still climbing because they are becoming more and more sought after for their clean, white meat and unique texture. Black belly rosefish have thin, delicate skin that is delicious when crispy. Between that and their size makes them a perfect candidate for eating whole. When you're cleaning these fish, you want to be careful because they're in the scorpionfish family, and look at this face. They've got these gnarly spikes around their face. You've got more right here, very sharp. They've got a couple of gnarly ones down here, and their dorsal fin are like little needles. Now these pec fins, totally safe. Tail fin, totally safe. And if you get those crispy, they're delicious. So we're gonna leave those on and we're gonna cut out the rest. The name black belly rosefish isn't the most creative name. Here it is. They have a black lining around their stomach, whereas most fish have a white lining around their stomach. After you take those fins off, grab your scaler, flip your fish around. Rosefish scales come off really easily. They're not glued on there like some fish, like sheep's head and triple tail all have tough scales. Whenever scaling your fish for eating whole, you always want to make sure you get all the scales on top of the pectoral fin and underneath the throat. So that way everything is good and edible. All right, open up the inside, give a nice little clip right underneath that throat. This whole thing pulls apart just like that. Put your fingers underneath all those gills, and we're gonna pull from the base instead of under the chin. And you get all the gills out just like that. Wanna cut this all the way through, and then we can peel apart some of this membrane. Even though it's black and nasty looking, it is actually totally edible, and you don't have to do that. But you do wanna pull it away just enough to expose the blood that is gonna run at the base of where the guts were. You can see the rib bones right here, so the top of the rib bones where they meet the spine is where the kidney of the fish is going to be. And whenever preparing a fish for cooking whole, you always want to pull that kidney out. It's just a pocket of blood right in there. You usually just use your finger and pluck it right out, just like that. All right, give it a quick rinse after we pull that blood out. We don't want fresh water touching our meat. But as of right now, all the meat is still protected because we have not made an incision exposing any of the fillet yet. Up next, we're gonna make a little incision right on top of where that fin was. That'll tell you where the spine is. And use just the tip of the knife to separate the ribs. So you got the rib bones right here, and we just cut right through them. They're pretty easy to cut through. Flip your knife around, and now ride right on top of the skeleton. Then we're gonna flip it over and repeat the process. We're gonna go right on top of the spine, just like that. Break those ribs, then rest your knife right on top of the skeleton and slide down. Again, we're going all the way down. We don't wanna cut through the skin. Take your scissors, snip right there, pick up on the spine, and just start cutting down. Once you're right to the head, you put a little bit of weight on the head, grab the spine, and give it a little flick just like that, and the whole thing comes out. And you can save this for your soups or stocks. Open her up, You can cook it just like this, having all those rib bones in, or you can take your knife and slide right underneath those rib bones just like that, flip it around. Make sure you feel those rib bones with your knife. That way you don't cut too far down and go into the meat. And we're just going to gently take all those rib bones out. And you got all the rib bones out. You have a nice chunk of meat inside of that collar. Tip of the knife right underneath those rib bones, just like that. Twist it around and let those bones guide your knife. And there you go. You got all the rib bones right there. Now when it comes to the pin bones, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can take some tweezers, grab those pin bones, and pluck them out just like that. Feel with your finger, grab next to it, apply a little bit of pressure around them, and they come right out. Now you can put your favorite herbs and spices inside of there, close them up, roast them in the oven, roast them on the grill. This beautiful fish is ready to go. And if you like eating fish, thank a hardworking commercial fisherman. It's thanks to them that we have hours out of the water fish like this at our seafood market. All right, we've got this guy beautifully butterflied. Now we're gonna show you how to fillet one. Now the skin on these fish is totally unique. Not only is the texture of the meat unique, but the skin is as well. We're gonna tell you about both of those. So we're gonna pick up the pectoral fin, puncture right underneath the collarbone, twist your knife around, and you wanna cut behind the head at an angle like that, making sure you don't lose that chunk of meat behind the head. Now watch this. You go down and look at that elasticity of the skin. Like the skin is stretching. Super interesting. Unique to the rosefish, or bluemouth perch if you live in Europe. Rest your knife right on top of the skeleton and pull towards the head. Starting from the tail, letting the skeleton guide your knife. That way you don't lose out on any of that delicious rosefish meat. Look how white this is. Tip of the knife, base of the ribs. Angle it slightly up to separate the connection the pin bones make to the ribs. And you can lift up on your fillet without any of that meat tearing. Tip of the knife on the second side and slide down. Rest your knife right on top of those rib bones. And if you don't want any of the bones in the fillet, you gotta go slow with this because rosefish rib bones are really easy to cut through. Now we're gonna separate off that whole fillet, and you've got 0 rib bones in there. But look at that jet black membrane contrasting off of that clean white meat. And the texture of black belly rosefish fillets, totally unique. It's like you took a yellowtail snapper, something that's light, mild, and flaky, and a pink shrimp, something that is plump, crisp, and sweet. I'm not saying that this is crisp at all, but it has a buoyant texture that is, again, unique to this fish. If you haven't tried it and you live in South Florida, I highly recommend it. We're gonna flip our fish over, repeat the process. We're gonna pick up the fin, go behind the head at an angle, slide all the way down, twist it around. Now we're gonna take the tip of our knife, go right at that opening, and slide down. You can see that skin stretching as I do that. The only reason why that looked as easy as it was because this knife is razor sharp. Rest your knife right on the skeleton and slide down. Let that skeleton guide your knife. A little bit more shallow cuts on the second side so that way we don't cut through the skeleton. Tip of the knife on the second side of the spine. Now tip the knife to the base of the ribs, angle it slightly up, and separate the connection the pin bones make to the ribs, which is really easy to do on these delicate ribbed fish. But just as easy as it is to separate the connection the pin bones make to the ribs, it is just as easy to cut through those rib bones because they are so delicate. And just like that, you've got your second side off, all the belly meat left on, no rib bones in there. And this black membrane is edible. Trim off the side, but for displaying in a retail market, no one wants to see that. So before it goes into our display, it's going to get a trim, and there is the final product. If you wanted to eat the skin, I would have scaled it first, but most of our customers are gonna want skin off, bones out. So we're going to display them like this, scale them if the customer wants them scaled, and remove the skin if they don't want the skin left on. Now when you're skinning and deboning rosefish, It's easier than delicate fish like snapper. On a snapper, your fish is more delicate, more prone to falling apart. Rosefish, because of their texture, they're going to hold together really well. Just get a good grip on that skin. And if you have a nice sharp knife, just push. And you don't have to worry about the fish falling apart at all. And you get all the meat off the skin. You can see on the bottom, there's no bloodline on this fish. It's just all clean white meat. So whereas rosefish used to be an affordable alternative to other mild whitefish like snapper, fast forward to today in 2025, and these fish are now competing with snapper in price. They're not as expensive as a red snapper, but a mangrove snapper, a yellowtail snapper, they're going to be competing in that price range. And the reason why is because they're worth it. They're absolutely delicious. The demand comes for a reason. Thank you to the commercial fisherman Brian for catching these beautiful fish, and thanks to you guys for making bycatch popular dinner plate items. Have a killer day, y'all.